Hey guys, Nikki here. Today we're going to be talking about maybe my favorite female competitor in all of wrestling history, the Empress of Tomorrow, the most dominant force that WWE has seen since maybe Hulk Hogan. Asuka. In NXT, she was the best champion they've ever had, but since she came to the main roster, she's seen some success, but she's also been hamstrung by some of the most baffling booking decisions ever that turned a once dominant force of nature into a moderately strong but kinda dumb upper mid-carder on the main roster. That's horrible, and it needs to be fixed. So let's fix it. In today's post, I'm going to try and fix Asuka's first 2.5 years on the main roster, from her debut in October of 2017 all the way to WrestleMania 36 in April of 2020. That should be more than enough time to get her back on track from a, shall we say, mixed start. But let's start all the way back at her debut in 2015 on NXT. She was given the royal treatment on her way into the company, showing up in the crowd at TakeOver Brooklyn 1 next to Ric Flair, getting vignettes to hype up her debut, and signing her in-ring contract about a month later, which was interrupted by Emma and Dana Brooke. 1 week later, they were called into William Regal's office and were shown an Asuka training montage. Now, we couldn't see it, but we could hear it, and we could hear punches, kicks, and screams. And we could see the horror on Emma and Dana Brooke's face. They immediately knew they had just made the worst mistake of their lives. From there, Asuka beat Dana at the next TakeOver, Emma at the one after that, and just continued to rack up wins. In just over 2 years on the NXT roster, Asuka was pinned or submitted 0 times! In fact, she only competed in 5 matches that she didn't outright win. 3 of them were fatal 4-ways on house shows where she didn't eat a pin. 1 was a house show tag match where she lost but didn't eat the pin, and presumably killed and ate the heart of her former partner for handing her an L. And the 5th was a number 1 contenders battle royale on NXT TV where she was eliminated late by Eva Marie and Nia Jax, aka the worst and second worst female wrestlers of all time. I'll let you decide who goes where. Oh, by the way, the match was actually won by Carmella. This will be important. Oh, and also good news, Asuka kicked both of their asses just a few weeks later. Soon enough, Asuka won the NXT Women's Championship from Bayley at TakeOver Dallas, and it was smooth sailing from there. Perfectly undefeated on TV from then on. She ended up holding the NXT Women's title for 523 days. Longer than any John Cena world title reign, longer than CM Punk's WWE title reign, longer than the New Day's tag title reign of 2015 to 2016, even longer than Brock Lesnar's longest reign as Universal Champion. The only title reign in WWE's modern era that lasted longer was Pete Dunne's UK title reign, and for like half of that reign, he didn't even have a show to call his own. There's a case to be made for Asuka being WWE's greatest champion ever. On the Mount Rushmore of great NXT performers, Asuka is like 3 of them. And she also had some epic matches in that time against Bayley at both TakeOver Dallas and an even better sequel at TakeOver Brooklyn 2, against Mickie James at TakeOver Toronto in what was probably Mickie James's best match, and that's saying something. An awesome Last Woman Standing match with Nikki Cross on NXT TV, and 2 amazing matches with Ember Moon at TakeOver Orlando and Brooklyn 3. The latter of which was her NXT swan song thanks to a broken collarbone. But this would be perfect timing, as now she would be ready for a call-up. And they immediately messed it up. Once vignettes started airing for her main roster debut, a bunch of women lined up talking about how they were going to be the ones to show Asuka a thing or two about the main roster. One of them, and the one who ended up getting Asuka's first main roster match at TLC 2017, was Emma! You know, this Emma? The one who looks like she's watching a snuff film right here? Yeah, she's gonna be the one who's gonna bring Asuka down a peg or 2. Obviously she didn't. She wrecked shop. And she went on a really great run after that. She was the sole survivor for Raw's women's team in Survivor Series. She won the first ever women's Royal Rumble, and she even won the first mixed match challenge alongside The Miz to give her a little dose of comedic charm. However, this was all building to WrestleMania 34 with Asuka challenging Charlotte Flair for the SmackDown Women's Championship. This was the litmus test. This would tell us just how all in the dub was on Asuka. They weren't all in. Charlotte ended the legendary undefeated streak of Asuka at 914 days. Boy. At least it was a great match. Easily the best women's match in WrestleMania history, and it showed the world at least that Asuka belonged in that upper tier of women's competitors. And besides, if Charlotte had to end the undefeated streak of Asuka, then they must be building up Charlotte for even bigger things, right? Oh, wait. Oh, no. She lost the title to Carmella 2 nights later via Money in the Bank cash-in. You know what? That's fine too, I guess. Time was running out on her briefcase. They probably wanted a strong women's champ on Raw since Ronda Rousey was about to be there, so Carmella couldn't go there. And they probably thought Carmella beating Charlotte would do less damage than Carmella beating Asuka, so fair enough. As long as Carmella is the transitional champion between Charlotte and Asuka, then that's just fine. Asuka lost to Carmella at Money in the Bank after James Ellsworth returned, dressed in Asuka's clothes, and caused a distraction. Seriously, she just stood there for what felt like a goddamn eternity, mesmerized by this dork Ellsworth. And then Asuka lost to Carmella again at Extreme Rules with Ellsworth in a shark cage after the cage was lowered to rescue Ellsworth after he had gotten his foot caught and he was dangling, and Carmella rammed Asuka's head into the cage, and just like that, her mystique was gone. Not long after that, she was relegated to a battle royale at Evolution, which she lost. Asuka and Naomi lost to the Iconics at Super Showdown, where she at least didn't eat the pin. She was eliminated at Survivor Series by Nia Jax less than a week after Nia exploded Becky Lynch's face. And she even lost Season 2 of the Mixed Match Challenge to Carmella and R-Truth because Carmella is somehow Asuka's biggest rival. But things finally turned around for her in late November when she won a Battle Royale to join Charlotte and Becky Lynch in a TLC match for the SmackDown Women's title, which she finally won! She got some help from Ronda Rousey, who pushed over a ladder that had Becky and Charlotte on it, but who cares? Asuka's champion at last! From there, she had a match with Becky Lynch at the Royal Rumble, which ruled, and a match against Mandy Rose at Fastlane, which did not. But they had to be building to Charlotte versus Asuka 2 at Mania 35. They just had to. With Becky off fighting Ronda for the Raw title, this had to be the match. I don't think I like this bit anymore. So Asuka lost the title to Charlotte 2 weeks before Mania so that they could shoehorn Charlotte into the Becky versus Ronda match and make it a winner-take-all thing, leaving Asuka totally out of the Mania main card. She ended up in the pre-show Women's Battle Royale, which, surprise, surprise, was won by freaking Carmella! She then teamed with Kairi Sane to become the Kabuki Warriors because that's what the most dominant wrestler of my lifetime needs. Backup. They were off TV for a shockingly long time after that. They became a team right after Mania and only had one televised match for 10 weeks. But they did eventually win the women's tag titles in October, had a pretty unremarkable run with it. She had another great match with Becky Lynch at the Rumble, which is now a yearly tradition. And then they lost the tag titles to Bliss Cross Applesauce at Mania 36. Well, that was another year wasted. When are they finally going to pull the trigger on Asuka and let her dominate like I know she can? Oh boy, this again. So Asuka won the Money in the Bank briefcase. And inside the briefcase was the Raw Women's Championship, which Becky Lynch had to vacate because of a pregnancy. Okay, this is all good, but at this point I'm kind of just waiting for the other shoe to drop. Ah, yes, there it is. Yeah, her second reign sucked balls. Versus Nia Jax at Backlash, double count out. Versus Nia the next night on Raw, win via fast count. Versus Charlotte on Raw, win via pre-match assault on Charlotte by Nia. Versus Sasha at Extreme Rules, no contest when Bayley put on the ref uniform and awarded Sasha the win. And finally, Asuka lost the title to Sasha on Raw via count out to save Kairi Sane from a Bayley beating, which she did not do because that was the last time we saw Kairi in WWE. She did regain the Raw title from Sasha at SummerSlam, but not before losing to Bayley for her SmackDown Women's title because it's impossible for Asuka to have a good day in WWE. She then retained against Mickie James via botch and had an actually pretty good match against Zelina Vega, and that's where Asuka is now. Granted, she is a Women's Grand Slam champion, and they don't hand her many clean losses, but it seems like they know they shouldn't give her clean losses, so the bookers find every possible loophole so that the losses that she does take aren't necessarily clean, but they still make her look dumb as hell in the process. So let's fix that. We begin with the vignettes that started airing for Asuka's debut in September of 2017. Now, at this point, Triple H and Stephanie are trying to decide on where to place Asuka and who her first opponent should be, and they land on Emma. She's had some good matches with Asuka and would make a good showcase for those who've never seen her, which is what you want out of a debut match. Emma's called into their office, and she's told that they want her to fight Asuka at the next pay-per-view, and Emma tells them, absolutely not! H and Steph are a bit stunned by this, like, why would Emma pass up this golden opportunity? Emma responds, fighting Asuka is like fighting a damn Terminator. You throw everything at her. You can hit her with your best shot, and she'll just turn around, smile at you, and send it right back to you. I fought her twice in NXT, and that's more than enough for my lifetime. Now, this may make Emma look a bit cowardly, but she is a heel, so that's not a character breaker, at least for me. And having Asuka be so intimidating that seasoned veterans like Emma are refusing to fight her will definitely turn some heads, I think. They keep asking around and are having a hard time finding people willing to get into the ring with her. They've all either fought her in NXT or have seen the carnage she brings. But there is one person who won't back down from Asuka, who isn't afraid of what Asuka may do to her, and that someone is Bayley. Around this time, we're about 3 months removed from Bayley losing a match because she was too much of a wuss to use a kendo stick on Alexa Bliss, and around this time, she had just been cleared to return from a shoulder injury. She needs a rebound for her character. She needs to prove that she's learned from the humiliation she suffered at the hands of Alexa Bliss, and stepping into the ring with Asuka when no one else seems willing to seems like a good case for Bayley getting her nerve back. Bayley does decently well against Asuka and fights valiantly, but the match is never really in doubt, and Asuka wins comfortably with the Asuka lock. By the way, for this run, hopefully we can make Asuka a total tweener, someone who just craves competition and will square up to anyone. Next night on Raw, Asuka is set to face some jobber, and the jobber is standing in the ring waiting for her opponent, and when Asuka's music hits, she nopes right out of there. She wants no part of Asuka. She tries to run up the ramp when Triple H stops her. The jobber doesn't want to get throttled by Asuka, and she says she doesn't even want to get paid. She just wants out. H offers to double her money, but she still says no. He ups it to triple money. She thinks, still says no. H is looking very annoyed by this point, and he glances at the crowd who clearly want to see an Asuka match, so he says, 5 times what you're getting. The jobber thinks, glances at Asuka, and weakly nods. She walks down to the ring, but Asuka rolls out to meet her, and she goes berserk on the jobber. Jobber Girl takes a series of kicks and strikes, and Asuka puts her away with the Asuka lock. Afterwards, it's announced that women who have to compete against Asuka will receive 5 times what they normally receive for a match, so that they can actually have a women's division who is willing to fight Asuka. Bayley says on Twitter that she wished that rule was in effect for her match, half joking. From here until WrestleMania, I would change virtually nothing. This was the best period of her main roster run in my opinion, mostly because she never freaking lost. The Survivor Series match is particularly great here, and I would change nothing about that either, because oddly enough, none of the women on the SmackDown side of this match had ever fought Asuka in NXT. Becky Lynch, Naomi, Carmella, Natalya, and Tamina. The only one who was in NXT at the same time as her was Carmella, and the one match they competed in together was that Battle Royale that Carmella won. So they could go into this match with plenty of unwarranted confidence. And that confidence is wiped away when Asuka taps out Carmella and Naomi in the first 2 minutes. From there on, Asuka doesn't compete that much in the match, let the match rebalance itself until we get to a final 2 of Asuka and Natalya. Natty pulls out all of her heart tricks, but it isn't nearly enough, and Asuka is the sole survivor. I'd also like to throw in a match for her at Clash of Champions. At the real event, Asuka wasn't on the card, but I think a match against Mickie James would be really solid here. Their match at TakeOver Toronto was really good, and they could build on it and further legitimize her with another win here. After that, she wins the Women's Royal Rumble, no changes there, and she refuses to shake Ronda Rousey's hand. That was good. Not even the baddest woman on the planet faces her. She beats Nia Jax at Elimination Chamber to avoid her being added to Asuka's Mania match, and then at Fastlane, she challenges Charlotte to a match at WrestleMania. And here is where we start making big honkin' changes to the timeline, because at Mania 34, Asuka wins the SmackDown Women's title. Obviously. If you want to convince your casual, non-NXT viewing audience that Asuka is as good as we who saw her in NXT think she is, you have to present her similarly. And a strong 4 months followed by a loss at Mania ain't gonna do that. So you have her win here, and let her soak in the joy of winning the title at Mania, instead of instantly taking away from that moment by making it about John Cena's fixation on The Undertaker. So, Asuka's the champion here, but Charlotte thinks she has a plan for her. Charlotte thinks that Asuka is a flash in the pan and that she can go hard out of the gate, but will tire out after a while. So, taking influence from the 60-minute Broadways that her father would put on in the NWA, Charlotte challenges Asuka to a 30-minute Iron Woman match at Backlash. If nothing else, she claims that even if she doesn't win the title, she'll be the first person to make the Empress tap out. Now hopefully this will make the fans worry that her never been pinned or submitted streak will end here, but thankfully it doesn't. Asuka wins the match 2 falls to 0, but Charlotte comes really close to making Asuka tap, bridging the figure 4 into the figure 8 just as time expires. The next 2 pay-per-views could show Asuka fighting inferior competition who have a couple of tricks up their sleeves. At Money in the Bank, she fights Carmella. Now, in this timeline, not only does she not have the Money in the Bank briefcase anymore, I would have her cash in on Natalya right after SummerSlam from last year, but she also already has James Ellsworth in her corner, and he tries to get involved in their title match at Money in the Bank, but gets kicked in the jaw so hard that the swelling finally gives him a chin. And from there, Asuka cruises to a victory. Then, at Extreme Rules, she fights both of the Iconics in a handicap match. Peyton and Billy get in some offense thanks to a couple of cheap shots, but Asuka makes Billy tap to the lock. Next comes SummerSlam, and this part is a bit tricky because this is where the attempted Becky Lynch heel turn happened that accidentally turned her into a megastar. But we can solve that by basically booking the same matches in real life, just replace Champion Carmella with Champion Asuka. Doesn't that feel better? Now, like in real life, Charlotte wins the match by pinning Becky, and this causes Becky to fly off the handle and attack Charlotte afterwards. A rematch takes place at Hell in a Cell, where the 3 women compete inside the cell. These women throw everything at each other, and Becky wins the match, this time by pinning Charlotte. So we've managed to take the title off of Asuka without pinning her and let Becky and Charlotte have a run with the SmackDown Women's title while their story is red hot. Asuka can miss out on the next month or so of programming. There's no need to have her complicate a good story here. The next time we see Asuka is at Evolution, where she winds up in the Battle Royale for a future title shot, and of course she wins the darn thing, last eliminating Nia Jax. The title match won't happen at Survivor Series though, as Becky Lynch is busy with Ronda Rousey. Oh, wait, nope, sorry. She's busy getting her brain scrambled by Nia, so she's once again in the 5-on-5 women's elimination match. Now, at the real show, Raw pitched a shutout so that Baron Corbin could keep his GM job, but he lost it a month later anyway, and the whole storyline kinda sucked, so let's kill it right here. The women's elimination match opens the show, and Asuka once again has a really good showing here. Near the end, it comes down to Asuka and Naomi for SmackDown versus Nia Jax for Raw. Corbin comes out to cheer on Nia, but gets hit with a flying rear view from Naomi, and Asuka wraps up Nia for the tap. SmackDown wins, this dumb storyline is put to bed immediately, and we don't have to think about it for the rest of the show. And just for good measure, Asuka kicks Baron in the head to put him out of his misery. Asuka finally gets to cash in her title shot against Becky Lynch at TLC in a TLC match, and these two go absolutely mental on one another with ladder shots and dives. In the end, like in real life, Ronda Rousey comes out at the end and tips over Becky's ladder as she's just fingertips away from the title. Now, yeah, this might feel like a cheap win for Asuka, but Ronda and Becky have been going back and forth on Twitter for months now, and this will be the opening salvo in their eventual WrestleMania main event feud. So, after Becky is taken out by Ronda, Asuka swoops in and takes the title. For those looking for a Rousey-less version of this match, may I interest you in their match the following month at the Royal Rumble, where Becky and Asuka fight one more time in a steel cage. This match opens the show, and they go 15 minutes without ever once thinking about leaving the cage, because why would they? They're warriors! Asuka wins the match here, but Becky comes back at the end of the night and wins the Royal Rumble. After this, Asuka gets a couple more title defenses under her belt. Naomi has been asking for a title shot for months after winning the Survivor Series match with Asuka, as well as having a strong showing in the Women's Royal Rumble. The match is competitive and won by Asuka. At Fastlane, it's Sonya Deville's turn. Now, Mandy Rose got this match here in real life, but Sonya has more upside in my opinion, so she'll get the match here with Mandy at ringside. And the reason I'm picking Sonya here is because her MMA background actually matches up really well against Asuka's submission and striking game. So for Asuka to win this one, she might have to pull some new stuff out of her bag, like maybe some aerial moves. Asuka scores another win here. So, Mania 35. Has to be Asuka versus Charlotte too. They're the two biggest women on the SmackDown side, along with Becky and Ronda on the Raw side. In the build-up, Charlotte can talk about how much of a down year it's been for her. She's had so many title opportunities and has only won one of them and didn't even get to celebrate it and lost it a month later. And this crummy year started with her loss to Asuka at WrestleMania 34. So a win over her here would be the start of her redemption. But don't feel too inspired by Charlotte's story. It's basically just, I'm a Flair, why am I not holding a title right now? At the Mania match, Charlotte throws everything she can at Asuka, but it does nothing. Asuka kicks out of a big boot at 1. She takes back-to-back natural selections and kicks out at 2. She gets put in the figure 4, but Asuka reverses the pressure. Charlotte's thinking, what do I have left? But then, she gets an evil little epiphany. She accidentally takes down the ref with a big boot, and she calls for another ref. And that ref is Charles Robinson. Oh no. Byron Saxton immediately knows that something's fucky. Charlotte puts Asuka in the figure 4, and as soon as Robinson gets in the ring, he calls for the bell. Asuka loses via screwjob, ending her undefeated streak at 1,278 days. Now, WWE loves to do this kind of finish, but here, in this situation, it would have some actual heft to it. Oh, by the way, has cat now. So if you hear purring, that's it. So in real life, Charlotte ended Asuka's undefeated streak, but didn't do anything with it. She lost the title to Carmella right afterwards, and has only had a handful of short reigns since then, none of them lasting longer than a pay-per-view or a takeover cycle. At least Brock killing the streak turned him into a monster again, and he went on the run of his life not long after. But here in this story, ending Asuka's undefeated streak by screwing her over like this would turn Charlotte into the most detestable person on the face of the earth. For her to steal Asuka's streak like this would be just the worst, and it would galvanize people against Charlotte. Also, by doing it this way, you can actually get 2 rubs from Asuka's streak. This one, and whoever actually beats her cleanly down the road. Just have the face commentator say that Asuka never actually lost. It would still work. So, after the bell rings, Robinson and Charlotte amscray, and Asuka is bewildered. Like, she goes to the first ref and pleads her case, but to no avail. It wasn't his decision. Then, she sees Robinson and Charlotte halfway up the ramp, and she puts 2 and 2 together. She marches up the ramp, and Charlotte wants no part in Asuka's fury, so she literally takes Robinson and throws her. Throws Robinson in front of her, and Asuka feasts on Robinson's bones. She spends the next couple of minutes absolutely decimating Robinson until the other refs try to make the save, but no dice. Robinson is dead man walking, and Asuka beats him down to the point where we don't see him again after this. Charlotte watches this from the top of the ramp and thinks, I won the title, but at what cost? And Asuka basically responds, everything. So next SmackDown, Charlotte comes out with a mile-wide smile. She's gloating about ending the undefeated streak of Asuka and berates the fans for siding against the greatest women's champion of all time. She also reveals that because Asuka laid hands on a ref, she's been suspended for 30 days. Ha, ha, ha. But that doesn't stop Asuka from trying to get another score of revenge. She hops the barricade, but gets held back by an army of refs. Charlotte points and laughs, ha ha, you suck. But suddenly though, Asuka breaks free, gets into the ring, and unleashes a fury of punches on Charlotte. It looks like a scene from Fist of the North Star, and Charlotte is already dead. Eventually, Asuka's dragged away by the police, and Charlotte is clutching her title, almost in the fetal position. From there, Asuka's suspension is lengthened from 30 days to 90 days, and during the Superstar shakeup, Bayley comes over from Raw and stands up for Asuka. She says that screwing over Asuka like that was a coward move, and if that's what Charlotte sunk to, then she'll be easy pickings for her. Also, during this time, it might be wise for Charlotte to get someone to help her from ringside. I mean, she is a queen, maybe she needs a princess. Maybe one from the Staten Island part of New York? I think that Charlotte and Carmella would be a really nice pairing while Charlotte's champ. So Bayley gets 3 shots at the SmackDown Women's title. First up, Money in the Bank, standard match. Carmella brains Bayley with the title and holds down Bayley's feet while Charlotte covers her. Charlotte scores the win. Next up, Stomping Grounds. Carmella's banned from ringside. Bayley's doing well here and may be on the verge of a win when Bayley is down in the corner, and when the ref goes to check on her, a pair of brass knuckles goes flying into the ring from the crowd. Charlotte catches it, but the person who threw it isn't seen on camera, although I think we can guess who it was pretty easily. Charlotte slips them on and KO punches Bayley. Finally, at Extreme Rules, these two fight in a steel cage match. Once again, Bayley is looking good, until Carmella reaches through the hole of the cage and grabs Bayley's leg. She pulls her leg into the hole, trapping Bayley in the cage wall. Charlotte looks very satisfied and starts to climb out of the cage. As she turns to wave goodbye to Bayley, Asuka's music hits. Her suspension would be up by now, and she full sprints down to the cage and climbs up it, meeting Charlotte at the top. Carmella manages to grab Asuka's leg and try to yank her back down, but Asuka is able to climb back down on her own and give a righteous beating to Carmella. So now, Charlotte's on a time limit. She needs to end this match before Asuka gets done munching on Carmella. So she drops back into the ring and just starts booting Bayley in the head over and over. Charlotte thinks she's got the win here, so she pulls Bayley out of the cage wall and covers, but Bayley just barely kicks out. Carmella's been killed off by Asuka at this point, and Asuka's starting to climb the cage. So all Charlotte can do is bolt up the opposite wall to escape the cage. Charlotte gets over just as Asuka lands in the ring and survives the cage match, but she knows what's coming next. and she has to stop it from happening. On the next SmackDown, it's announced for SummerSlam, Asuka versus Charlotte for the SmackDown Women's title. Charlotte and Carmella storm into Trips and Steph's office and demand to know why Asuka is being rewarded with a title shot. The last memory we had of Asuka before last Sunday was of her breaking her suspension to earn an even longer suspension. She shouldn't be getting title shots, she should be in jail. Steph calms her down and says that for starters, Asuka never got her rematch from WrestleMania, but she also says that in the contract for the match, Asuka has to play nice in the build to SummerSlam. If she attacks Charlotte or Carmella in the build-up, the match is off. But if they attack Asuka, then she's free to defend herself. Charlotte and Carmella glance at one another, and they know what they have to do. Piss off Asuka. They spend the next 4 weeks doing whatever they can to provoke a reaction. They trash Asuka's locker room, they crash her rental car, they beat down Bayley, who's become something like Asuka's friendly rival at this point. At one point, Charlotte even makes some racist comments towards Asuka. Now, normally I don't like racism to be used as a heel tactic, it just feels lazy. But if the goal is to provoke a reaction, it might be the ticket here. Asuka nearly bites there, but restrains herself and walks away. Go-home show to SummerSlam, and Charlotte and Asuka sign the contract for SummerSlam. And Charlotte spends the whole time talking about how she's going to retain the title and hold on to it for the next decade, and how there's nothing Asuka can do to stop it. And Asuka simply says, for now, I can't. But she can. And Bayley slides in behind Charlotte and smashes her in the head. Bayley tries to fight them 2-on-1, but can only do so much. After a bit of a beatdown, Charlotte's holding up Bayley, telling Carmella to hit Bayley with a super kick. But as she goes for it, Asuka dives in front of the kick and takes the super kick for Bayley. Carmella has now officially laid feet on Asuka, meaning she's free to defend herself, and she does so with extreme prejudice. Asuka annihilates Carmella, and when Charlotte goes to try to save her partner, she stops herself because doing so will require laying hands on Asuka, and that would mean they'd have to fight. So Charlotte just throws up her hands, walks away, leaving Carmella to fruitlessly tap out in the Asuka lock. At SummerSlam, Carmella is out of the picture, and it's just Charlotte and Asuka, and Charlotte is being humbled. She gets blown up at every opportunity by Asuka, who, in the words of JBL, is just having fun out there, Moggle. After one particularly rough sequence, Charlotte's just like, nope, I'm done here, and pieces out, running as fast as her beaten up legs will carry her. She loses via countout, but retains. Charlotte spends the next several weeks just trying to hide from Asuka, basically, because she knows Asuka wants blood. For Clash of Champions, it'll be these two again, this time Falls Count Anywhere so that Charlotte can't try to leg it. Charlotte goes to Steph and Trips again, but this time instead of confidently trying to disparage Asuka, she's nervous, paranoid, and panicky. She doesn't want this kind of match, and legitimately begs for the stipulation to be removed. Steph tells her to get a grip of herself and says that the match will go on as announced, and that Charlotte is the champion. Hell, Charlotte is the queen, and she needs to remember that and start conducting herself as such. So Charlotte sucks it up, straightens her posture, thanks Steph, and leaves. Although PG swearing can be heard on the other side of the door as Charlotte storms off in frustration. Right before the match happens, Asuka knows that Carmella will be assisting Charlotte in this match, so Asuka stalks Carmella backstage, and once she's alone, Asuka pounces on her, locking her in the Asuka lock, and once she's worn out, she throws her into a closet and props the door shut. Charlotte comes out first wondering where in the world Carmella is, but an evil smile from Asuka during her entrance gives her all the information she needs. The two get to brawling, and the action spills backstage pretty quickly. Charlotte knows that her best bet is to find Carmella so they can team up on Asuka, so she spends more time opening every door looking for Carmella than actually engaging with Asuka. After about 10 minutes, Charlotte eventually finds the locker room and frees Carmella, but by this point they're both on spaghetti legs. Asuka dispatches Carmella one more time, puts Charlotte in the lock, and Charlotte taps out. Asuka is back on top. Hell in a Cell is next, but by this point, Charlotte is just tired. She's been put through the Asuka meat grinder a bunch by this point, and she's about done with her. But Carmella motivates her to pick her chin back up and keep being the queen of WWE. And this is just enough to get Charlotte going again. Charlotte wins the number 1 contenders match, she wins a couple of big matches on SmackDown, and by the time the pay-per-view rolls around, it's actually Charlotte's idea to put the match in the cell. Asuka happily agrees. These two have met in the cell before 2 years ago alongside Becky Lynch, and now they'll face off one more time. This is probably Asuka and Charlotte's most competitive match. Charlotte looks particularly strong here and pushes Asuka to her absolute limit. But after a grueling 25-minute match, Asuka just defeats Charlotte and walks away with the belt. It's kind of implied here that Asuka is starting to be worn down by all of the wars she's been in, and she might be starting to be vulnerable. Carmella consoles a frustrated Charlotte in the post-match, and they go on to win the women's tag titles not long after this. Next is Survivor Series, and the match is once again a triple threat between the 3 women's champions. Asuka as SmackDown champ, Becky Lynch as Raw champ, and Shayna Baszler as NXT champ. This match will rule. These 3 women are maybe the best in the business at what they do. Becky as being a beloved face, Shayna as being a total asshole, and Asuka as being Asuka. The 3 women trade the advantage back and forth, but in the end, Asuka has the lock on Shayna, but Becky makes the save. Becky and Asuka go for a bit before Asuka puts the lock on Becky. Becky is moments from tapping when Shayna knees Asuka in the head, locks on the Kirifuda clutch, and taps out Becky. Shayna wins the match, and afterwards Asuka is fuming. On the next Raw, Asuka comes out screaming in Japanese at Becky, but Becky calms her down by talking back to her in Japanese. And Asuka simply replies, "You don't deserve that title," and storms off. A couple of weeks later, Asuka wins a multi-brand battle royale for a shot at the Raw Women's Championship, much like the one that happened in real life before SummerSlam 2020. In this match, we get the final 2 of Asuka versus Shayna Baszler, like that other battle royale, and after some intense back and forth, Asuka takes out Shayna. Asuka faces Becky Lynch at TLC for her Raw Women's Championship, and during this match, Becky takes Asuka's left arm to town. She plays a smart, submission-based game with Asuka where she never relents on the arm, constantly softening it up for the disarmer. Near the end of the match, Asuka gets the Asuka lock on, but her arm is having trouble keeping Becky in place, so it's basically just a rear choke instead of the Asuka lock, and Becky manages to free herself, slam Asuka's face to the mat, and lock on the disarmer. Asuka stays in the hold for a long time, but finally, after a full minute in the hold, Asuka taps. After 1,530 days, more than 4 years, Asuka has finally and cleanly tasted defeat at the hands of the man, Becky Lynch. Becky is stunned, like she was sure that she could win, but even still, seeing Asuka tap is like seeing God bleed. Becky celebrates her win while keeping a wary eye on Asuka to make sure she doesn't snap, and eventually, Asuka gets up and gets face to face with Becky and tells her, "You were ready for Asuka," like she did in real life to Charlotte at Mania 34. Asuka raises Becky's hand, pays her respect before bowing and leaving the ring to let Becky celebrate for real. The torch has officially been passed. From here on, we see a much more reserved and, dare I say, friendly Asuka. Like, she could still turn you into a jigsaw puzzle, but now she can kind of relax a bit. For the Royal Rumble, Bayley earns a shot at the title, and Asuka is happy to give her friend a chance. They're getting real buddy-buddy. In the build, Asuka and Bayley actually earn a crack at Charlotte and Carmella's women's tag titles. They lose that match with Charlotte pinning Becky. Charlotte runs off, celebrating like she just won the everything, finally happy in the knowledge that she technically beat Asuka. But the loss doesn't get to Asuka like it would in days past. Asuka and Bayley fight at the Rumble. It's a fun back and forth where Bayley ends up looking pretty good, but Asuka gets the win. At Elimination Chamber, she has a new target, Alexa Bliss. In this story, she still has Nikki Cross in her corner, but they're both heel, with Nikki working as Alexa's deranged enforcer. Alexa is absolutely ruthless in this match, absolutely taking it to Asuka, with Nikki getting in little pot shots wherever she can. Alexa is straight up dominant for a lot of this match, but Asuka snags a lucky Asuka lock and forces Alexa to tap. Alexa survives, but something seems off. Finally, we're on the road to WrestleMania, and the Royal Rumble winner, Shayna Baszler, has a decision to make. Does she go for a rematch with Rhea Ripley, who just took her NXT Women's title? Does she face Becky Lynch, who Baszler made tap at Survivor Series? Or does she go for Asuka, who seems to be ripe for the picking? It's announced on the first Raw after Elimination Chamber that Shayna will make her decision. All three women's champions meet in the ring and await Shayna's decision. When Shayna gets in the ring, she first addresses Rhea. She says that title isn't worth her time anymore. She wants that WrestleMania payday, so she tells Rhea to go take a hike, which she does. This leaves Becky and Asuka, when suddenly Ronda Rousey sneaks in, bashes Becky, while Shayna goes for Asuka. After a quick beatdown, Rousey has Becky in her armbar, while Shayna has the Kirifuda clutch on Asuka, and the two Mania matches take shape. Later, Shayna reveals that she picked Asuka for two reasons. One, Becky and Ronda have some unfinished business, so Shayna basically let Ronda take Becky. And two, Asuka has gone soft. She's no empress, she's a clown who tries and fails to be a badass. And she confidently boasts that there's nothing Asuka can do that she isn't ready for. On the first night of WrestleMania 36, Ronda defeats Becky to reclaim the Raw Women's Championship with the help of the other horsewomen. Jessamyn Duke and Marina Shafir win a four-way tag match against the champs Charlotte and Carmella, Bayley and Sasha, and the Iconics for the women's tag titles. And then on night 2, it's Shayna versus Asuka, and Asuka gets bodied. Shayna comes out of the gate swinging and never relents. Never gives Asuka a moment of reprieve. She just batters her, winning convincingly with the Kirifuda clutch. From there, all four of the MMA horsewomen hold the main roster gold. And Asuka may need a couple of months to regroup and come back stronger, but I think that's enough for now. I am tired. So, thank you guys very much, and I'll see y'all later.